Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Hori D-pad for the Nintendo Switch because I've been watching people play with their new Switch Minis, and I've not been all that happy over the years with my separated D-pad here, which is just a collection of buttons on the typical Joy-Con. So I went out and bought this one from Hori that has a proper D-pad integrated, and I thought I would do a quick review of this to let you know my thoughts on it. Now, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this little Joy-Con is all about. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. This is modeled after the left Joy-Con that you would get with your Switch console if you got the normal Switch that can dock with your TV. The Switch Lite, of course, has these integrated. But what I like about the Hori D-pad here, of course, is that you have the full D-pad versus the separated button design. It feels really light. In fact, it almost feels like a demo that you might see at the store. And the reason is that it doesn't have a battery, nor does it have a rumble motor or anything else inside of it. It is strictly a controller, and it will only work when it is docked with your Switch console. It does slide in, and you don't feel the light weight when it is attached, so that has been a good experience so far. The D-pad's really nice, and we're going to do a couple little gameplay examples in a few minutes to check things out, so that's good. You have your button here for the circle button here, which I think does screen grabs and stuff. This one feels a little squishy to me, so on the main controller here, you get a nice little click to it. This one feels very recessed. But I don't push this all that often, and if anything, it might prevent an accidental push, so that might not be such a bad thing. The big thing that I noticed on it is that the shoulder button feels different than the actual shoulder button on the other Joy-Con. It has a deeper travel to it, so if you are playing games that use a lot of the shoulder buttons, it's going to feel a little different in your left finger than it does in the right. And mine has this kind of a little sharpness to the edge of the button there. So it works, but it just feels different. And it's really the only thing that feels negatively different from the other Joy-Con that's on there. By the way, it also doesn't have any motion controls, so it's going to rely on the other side to do all of that. But I think a lot of folks will be using this to play games like the classic SNES and NES games and probably won't have too many issues there. The trigger button feels pretty similar to the original. The only other thing that I noticed with it is that when it's off and you shake it around, you'll hear the buttons kind of rattling, and that's one thing you don't get with the Nintendo controllers. The plastic on it doesn't feel as high quality as the Joy-Cons do. The Joy-Cons have that rubberized coating for a little better grip. You really don't have that here. And you may not like the aesthetics of this either. So these cost less than 20 bucks. They're not all that expensive. But the only three that I could find available right now have some kind of licensed pattern. So this is the Mario pattern. This is the least expensive one. There's also a Zelda and a Pokemon one that cost a little bit more. And you're going to have some contrast here depending on what your other Joy-Con looks like. But I'm looking at using this as an occasional thing where I'm going to pop it open and just play with it every once in a while. So I think I'm going to be okay there. Let's get into some gameplay now and see how it does with some classic games. All right, so here we are with Zelda, and I like to test Zelda because if we're going to have some errant diagonals, this is where you'll see things go off the tracks. So as I'm moving Link back and forth here, you can see he's staying pretty much in line here. And a lot of times you have D-pads that might give you an errant diagonal, and if we had that, we would see him moving up while I'm doing this rocking motion. So you can really rock back and forth pretty well here on the D-pad. No issues there. It actually feels really nice. It's got a decent feel to it. It's not too sensitive, and for these classic games, I think it's doing pretty well. Now, another game that really benefits from this D-pad is Tetris 99. I found that on the traditional Joy-Cons, I'm often making inadvertent drops of my pieces because the buttons are so sensitive. The D-pad here works much, much better with this game, and if you are a very frequent Tetris 99 player in handheld mode, this is going to be a remarkable improvement over the original. I'm actually playing this game a lot better, and maybe, just maybe, I might win a match one of these days too. Now on modern games, the stick feels like it has slightly less travel than the Nintendo one. I'm still able to do fine movements here, but there is just a little bit more travel again on the original Nintendo stick versus the Hori one here, but it still is feeling pretty nice to me. In fact, it feels a lot smoother than the Nintendo Joy-Con does, but it could just be that these Joy-Cons now are 2.5 years old and starting to feel some of the wear and tear of all my game playing going on here. There are no motion controls in the Hori stick, but you will have motion because you'll have the original Nintendo Joy-Con on the right-hand side. So games like this that have some motion control elements to it should work the same way. Now, one thing I had read about with this is that there was some battery drain issues with this product when it initially came out. I have not experienced those. In fact, I left my Switch off its charger all night to see if it might drain when it's sleeping, because I think that was one of the problems they had with it. I'm not seeing any battery drain. I played with it a good amount yesterday, and the battery drain was about what I typically experience. I also tested latency on it to see if it's any better or worse than what you have with your stock Nintendo Joy-Cons, and the latency test that I ran on it came in pretty much the same. So I don't think you're losing anything by going with a third-party controller here, and you're getting a much better feeling D-pad as a result. So when you take it out of the box, it's definitely going to feel a lot cheaper than your Nintendo device will. The plastic, again, isn't as good as the original. It's also very lightweight because it, again, lacks the batteries and the rumble motors and all the other stuff. But once it's docked, it really feels like it's part of your Switch, and it has a very similar grip to the console like it typically does. And remember, you can only use it when it's attached to the Switch. And for the price, I think it's a pretty good deal. So check it out if you've been looking to get a traditional D-pad on your Nintendo Switch. I'm liking this quite a bit, and I think I'll be playing a lot of my classic games with it, and of course that Tetris 99 game too. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Chris Allegretta, Tom Albrecht, Mike Talbert, Brian Parker, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.